some of them are not going to change. Some of them are just have been in place for a long time, and it's a bigger task than just this case to change something like that. But something like this is deceptive, and that's just not appropriate. Companies should not be, they shouldn't be doing that, and it causes a lot of confusion, and it has impacts for due process, because there are people who may see this document. There may be people who see it and say, FERC has already ruled on this, there's not that much else that I can do at this point. You know, other people may review it and say, well, if we're considered both arguments and FERC came out this way, then, you know, that's how it goes. I wanted a fair hearing. This is what FERC had to say, when it's not FERC saying it, but it's the company. So I think this is very troubling. This is something I have not seen in other cases. And every pipeline has its own modus of operandi. You know, some of them have the land agents who go out and, you know, threaten you that if you don't sell your property, they're going to, you know, take you to court and fine you. I mean, there's like all kinds of like quirky things that go on with different pipelines, but I have not seen this before. It also suggests to me they really want to move this thing through very quickly. So they really want to push the process along, which is why they've done this front work. Let's see, I had some other comments. Oh, a couple of other things. I know that one of you had asked, I responded to an email about getting the information, the CEII, the Critical Energy Infrastructure Information, and filing a FOIA request or a CEII. Did you follow up with that, or are you going to have that? Okay, yeah, those are things that you've noticed. A lot of the application is labeled privileged for one reason or another. There's two reasons it might be privileged. Sometimes the information after 9/11, a lot of this stuff was more open before 9/11. After 9/11, FERC became concerned about the ability of terrorists to see plans that were filed online, and so companies are required to designate, you know, maps and diagrams of their infrastructure or their plans for where they're going to put a piece of pipeline as critical energy infrastructure information. CEII is what it's called. Now, you can access that information, it's just you have to go through a special process to do it. And there is a process, I think I sent the links to somebody. There is a process for doing it right at the FERC website. They've made it much more user-friendly. It used to be even harder, you know, much more difficult to do. But that's a request that you want to put in, because that's another potential argument. I mean, you know, I certainly understand how, you know, if there's like a national organization of people against pipelines, you know, I certainly understand how maybe a company would not want to make this information available to you. But when you're a landowner, or when you're a member of the community, and you want to have the ability to have meaningful input on the process, you really need access to everything that FERC is going to see. And so my feeling is that when you don't have access to this information, or you don't get access to it right away, there are some due process implications. So I think that, you know, it's important to go and start to ask for the information, just to, you know, start to build that type of due process argument. Now, the things that are not CEII, there's also other information that is considered privileged but not CEII, and that's usually information that has to do with endangered species, or I'm trying to think what other, endangered species is certainly one of them. Those are also things that you can get through the Freedom of Information Act request, or many times you can get it directly from the company, or sometimes the company will provide it directly. With some of my clients, I represent, you know, some large municipalities, or you know, much bigger organizations, and a lot of times the pipeline will, you know, provide that information to them, you know, to just write to the city or the engineers who they're dealing with there. So sometimes too, even though the situation is very contentious, sometimes just making a call, you know, to the whoever, do they give you like a name of a contact or their project manager or something, and just asking, you know, saying, we're putting this comments together, we'd like to be able to see this. It'd just be easiest if you could do it this way. You could provide this disc to us, you know, sign a non-disclosure if they ask you to do that. And then if they don't give it to you, then you also can go, when you go back to FERC to ask for the information, you can say, we tried to ask for it this way, it would have been much faster. Now we're forced to go through this whole FOIA process. It's just going to create more delay. You know, we're going to need more time to be able to review it and submit information. So that was something. Okay, another thing is, I noticed this comes up in a lot of cases too. Obviously, having a compressor station in your community is going to have an impact on property values. I don't know if this is one of the cases. The pipelines have this like study that was prepared, it's probably like 10 years ago, the one that says, oh, there's no impact. In fact, the property values increase when you have a pipeline community. So it's just, you know, the only thing I can think of is sometimes they do replace, you know, there's like these pipelines that have been in there since, you know, the 1800s, and they replace those. Okay, maybe there, you know, it's helpful, but otherwise the study has been bandied about, and FERC keeps adopting it. So it's insane. But these property value issues are very important, especially now at a time when most people's their most important asset is their house, and property values are already tanking, you know, for many other reasons unrelated to pipelines. And so it's just to not give special consideration to that particular issue, to just kind of like blow it off or make a joke about it, I think is offensive. And I think that a lot of representatives will eventually start to feel that way and actually require FERC to either redo that study or to just, you know, to consider these issues a lot more closely.
Their application addresses, I'm assuming you saw that in the application, it addresses property values, and they say there's no study that shows property values have dropped, and so they have no reason to believe that property values will drop. So, I mean, how do we fight that? Because we have all looked for a study that we can use saying, here's proof that property values will drop. So, I mean, how do you argue something when you can't find the proof? And this $3 million company is saying, oh no, there's no study out there. And there's our gas compressor in Virginia where they built multi-million-dollar homes around it. Because that's what they keep saying. You know, the compressor in Dominion, they built all around us multi-million-dollar homes. And our argument is, well, we were here first. And, I mean, how do you argue?
Yeah, you know, there's not, I mean, that's one thing. I have tried to find out or to see if there's like some organization that will actually, you know, fund a study nationally to show that. But for the time being, I mean, you know, there isn't a lot of information. It's something that confronts people in many cases. I mean, in this situation, if they say we have no reason to believe, that's a situation, you know, where you would say, well, they're not presenting any evidence. You know, if FERC were to adopt that and say we don't have any reason to believe values will be impacted, that's the argument you would make there is to say there's no evidence to support their decision. So it's unsupported, the legal terminology is unsupported by substantial evidence. The agency has to make a decision that's based on evidence, and it has to analyze the evidence and come up with a conclusion that's reasonable based on that evidence. So if there's nothing there, the best argument is, well, there's nothing. You know, if you're going to say there's no impact, you have to prove it. And of course, there's a lot of case law that shows that you have to prove it. You can't base it on a hunch. If they come out with a 10-year-old study, you say, well, this is a 10-year-old study, and it's different for this reason, that reason, and you know, it's before the whole housing market tanked. Also, you know, prices were going up, things were less impacted. And like I said, there's a lot of reasons that you don't necessarily know why a property value may not have been impacted. Like I said, there could have been, you know, an 8-inch pipe from the 1800s that was replaced by a 24-inch pipe. That makes it safer, you know, that would improve property values, you know. So there are certain situations where they do improve for reasons that don't necessarily apply here. But I think the property value issue is really, really important. I think that it's something that, that you know, all of you should raise. And I think that also, even anecdotally, I mean, I know that, you know, I've seen, I think if you look online or maybe even talk to real estate agents, you know, even if there's a real estate agent, you know, just even, you know, speaking with real estate agents and asking them what the impact is, because it's got to have some kind of an impact. Nobody wants to live near a compressor station.
I almost wonder if there isn't actually a component of that to take to the town council, because it's possible that the tax revenue from this nice plant would be offset by a tax loss as a function of all of our house values going down, right? So
that's a very good point. Yes, yes.
And I have brought that up. I mean, not officially, but just in conversations with them guys. That you may be getting money from them, but our property values would drop, so it decreases.
It's actually a wash.
I'll tell you which slide to go to. I just want to make sure I go through all the points that the notes I took care of.